So welcome everyone to the webinar today. We are going over the TOEFL speaking section of the TOEFL exam, and I'll explain a little bit more while I focus on the TOEFL speaking section. But what has happened over the last couple years is that I have had a lot of students come to me who are interested in who are about to take the TOEFL exam, or they've taken it a few times and they are not able to get that score of 26 that they need on the speaking section of the TOEFL. So they come to me, they say, Annie, I am dying here because I need to get a 26. I have, I'm wanting to go to a university in the United States. I'm wanting to work in the US. Or another English-speaking country, and I have to get this passing score on the TOEFL. And so at first, I was thinking, okay, well, I don't know much about the TOEFL exam, but let's figure it out and let's see what we can do. And the more I've worked with students who are working to pass a TOEFL, the more familiar I've become with the TOEFL exam and what they are requiring, especially of the speaking section. And as I've worked with students, it's been incredible to see how many have been able to pass with the help that I've been able to give and be able to get that score of 26. I think it's a matter of, it's a scary test. It kind of gets, you get a lot of anxiety, you get a lot of, get very nervous about this test. You're not quite sure. There's a lot to think about. And I think what I can help with that is to bring some kind of clarity, simplify what are the most important things to focus on when we come to the TOEFL speaking section. Because I think we tend to make it a little too complex and a little too scary. But when you can break it down to the basics and what exactly you need to work on, and make sure that you are concentrating on during that section, then it becomes a lot more clear. Those nerves will settle, and the more prepared you are, the better you'll do. And what I hate to see is when people, students that I've seen, they've taken it multiple times and they just keep taking it without getting the proper instruction so that they can improve. So instead of wasting a lot of money taking the test over and over again, my advice to you is to do it right the first time, and make sure that you're getting the preparing in such a way that will get you the score that you need for the first time. All right, so the TOEFL speaking section. So first of all, if you don't know me yet, if you're new to Pronunciation Pro, or my name is Annie Rudin, and I am a certified speech language pathologist. That's what all those letters behind my name are for. And with the American Speech Language Hearing Association. This is a national certification, and which just means that I've been to a lot of schooling. I have a master's degree in speech language pathology and have done quite a bit to get certified to be able to basically take what you're doing in your speech and your language and be able to help you understand what you need to do to be understood better, and to speak in such a way that people are going to fully understand you and be able to remove that barrier of how you're saying things. So as you're speaking to someone, you don't want them to be concentrating on how you're saying what you're saying, but what you're saying, and to truly understand you and understand what you are trying to communicate. So this is me. I have 3 boys. Andrew and Jimmy are my oldest, and then I've got Luke, who is my little baby, and such a fun little kid. So just a little bit about me. So now let's go get into why we're here, the TOEFL exam. All right, so first of all, you have to ask yourself, why am I not passing the TOEFL speaking section? If you've taken it and you're not sure, you haven't you haven't been as successful as you are hoping with the TOEFL exam. And if you haven't taken it yet, what do I need to do to pass this TOEFL speaking section? And for a minute, let me just clarify here. My expertise is not in teaching the English language. So I'm not an ESL teacher or an English teacher per se. I am a pronunciation and fluency coach. I specialize in once you kind of have a good understanding of English, then I can take what the English that you're speaking and be able to help you refine it and perfect it in such a way that will help you be understood by people. So there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done in pronunciation and the fluency of your speech, so that you can take the English level that you have and really be effective with it. So when it comes to passing the TOEFL speaking section, so the other sections, the reading, the writing, those sections I'm not the expert on, and I'll tell you kind of where to go if you are needing help with that. But the TOEFL speaking section has to do with your conversational English. It has to do with your grammar, your vocabulary, all of that. So that could be a reason you're not passing, is more grammatically, vocabulary. You're just not as fluent in forming words and sentences in English. It could be that your answers are a little unorganized, that you're not sure exactly how to organize your answers to make them as clear and understandable as possible. It could be that your timing is off. So there's specific timing constraints that you have in the TOEFL exam that points will be taken off if you're not able to stay within that timing. And then there's an aspect of your accent and your fluency in terms of how well you're understood. You might be saying all the words, you might be saying using the correct grammar and vocabulary and such, but if you're not using the correct accent of English or the rhythm of English, then that can significantly affect your score, because obviously the person judging you in the exam, or they are going to need to understand exactly what you're saying, and whether that be a grammar issue or more of a pronunciation issue, you have to really kind of look at that and figure out, okay, what is it that is causing this disconnect in this TOEFL speaking section. So we're going to go over each one of these, and I will give you more information on each one of these of how you can be more effective in all of these areas. All right, so the TOEFL speaking, let's talk about the English grammar. So English grammar, vocabulary. And like I said, I am not an English teacher, so I can't really help you as much in here, in this category. I can kind of help you fine tune some grammar. I can take, if you are in more of an intermediate level, I can help you become more advanced in your English grammar and vocabulary. But my expertise, again, is more in the pronunciation and the fluency, your accent, and how well you are using the English that you know, and how effective you're using it. So, but I'm not going to leave you just hanging here. So there's a friend of mine, Jamie Miller. She prepares people to take the TOEFL exam. And what I love about Jamie is her whole heart is into it. She is as sincere a teacher as you can imagine. And if you go to jamiemiller.com, you can find her website and her programs that are available online. So anywhere around the world. I think she lives in Turkey right now. She's a U.S. citizen, American, grew up in the States, but she is living over in Turkey. And she helps people pass the TOEFL, and she's an incredibly effective teacher. So If you need help with more of the grammar, the reading section, the writing section, all of that, she is the one to go to. And what happens is Jamie typically sends, if she knows that, okay, one of our students is struggling in the speaking section and they have a thick accent and their pronunciation could use some work, then she typically sends them my direction and sends them to me because that's my expertise. That's where I'm the strongest and that's where I can help the most. And so we've developed a little relationship here where I know that I'm not as strong with the grammar piece and that she can do that much more effectively. So so go give her a visit if that's where you're struggling. So let's talk a little bit about kind of organization within the TOEFL speaking section. So what we have is you start with a question. Excuse me. Let me get a little drink here so that I clear my throat. Okay, so you start with a question with the TOEFL exam. And for instance, something like, tell me about your best friend. Tell me why they are your best friend and give details to support your answer. So what you do is you have the organization of the TOEFL speaking section. You're given the question and then, and we'll go over a little bit about the timing, but you have 15 seconds to prepare an answer. So you'll be able to have 15 seconds to kind of think through the question and come up with a few notes about that question. And then you have 45 seconds to respond. In the response, and let me think about, as you're preparing for that, in that 15 seconds, what you want to do is to think of the question and think of 2 points that you would like to go along with that. So think of your best friend. Say my best friend is Stephanie. So my best friend is Stephanie, and then think of 2 points of why that person is your best friend. Okay, that person is my best friend, and I'm going to think of 2 points. She is a great listener, and she's a lot of fun. Okay, great listener, a lot of fun. And that's about as much time in that 15 seconds. You probably won't be able to do much more than think of that, your response, and then 2 points to support that response, support that answer. So what you want to do in the response is keep that response as organized as possible. So you're going to restate the question and say, my best friend is Stephanie because she is, and then you're going to state the 2 specific points, because she is a great listener and she is a lot of fun. Okay? She's a great listener because, and you're going to go into just a brief explanation of that first point and then a brief explanation of the second point. So restate the question. Stephanie, my best friend is Stephanie. She is my best friend because she is a great listener and she is very fun. She's a great listener because whenever I have a problem or something that comes up that I'm concerned about, I know I can call her and she will listen to me and help me solve the problem. She's also my best friend because she's a lot of fun. Whenever I feel like I need a break from life and I just need to get away and to enjoy it, then I will call her up and I know that we can have a fun time together. Okay? So you're telling a little bit of information about each point. And then at the end, you restate the question with your 2 points. This is why Stephanie is my best friend, because she is a great listener and because she is a lot of fun. Okay? So that's the response. Think of it as you kind of have the phrase or the analogy that just came to mind was an Oreo cookie. I don't know if you've had an Oreo cookie, but basically there's the ends of the cookie and there's the middle. There's kind of the creamy center and then the cookie outside. So the two ends of the cookie, and I say Oreo cookie because I love them, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. But so you have the ends of restating the question and then restating the question with your 2 points. Okay, those are the ends. At the beginning, you want to restate the question, give your 2 points. At the end, you want to restate your question and give their 2 points. In the middle, you're going to go through each of those 2 points and give information about each point. Okay, think of the organization there, and think of it in terms of the person the person administering the test. As they're listening to your response, it helps them, as they're listening to your response, it helps them be able to hear what you're having to say. When you're organized about it, it becomes very easy for your listener to follow exactly where you're going with your response. So take, for instance, if you said, okay, they asked you the question, who is your best friend, and give details to support your answer. And you said, my best friend, let's see, I have a lot of best friends. They're really great. Let's see, my friends are fun and they're exciting. And, sometimes we go to these clubs and we go out to eat sometimes, and we like to go to movies. And, Ted, he's really great. I really enjoy being with Ted. I'm not sure if he's my favorite friend. So you're speaking, but there's not much organization to it. The listener is going to be a little confused about where you're going with your response. So the more organized you are, the more effective you will be in this speaking section of the TOEFL. So again, restate the question, give 2 specific points, give a little information about each point, restate the question with those 2 points, and doing that all within 45 seconds. 45 seconds is going to go quickly, and actually we'll go over a little bit more about how to make those 45 seconds as effective as possible here. All right, so that's more organization. So let's go into timing. So timing, like we said, we have 15 seconds to prepare, and then there's 45 seconds to give your response. This is not a lot of time, but it also can be just enough time if you keep it simple. And that's really what the judges want, is for you to keep it simple so that it's easy to understand and you're giving just enough information and not too much. So the important thing to remember with timing of this, first of all, don't be rushed. Don't be too rushed. And make sure that when you're practicing for the TOEFL, and I'll tell you how I can help you practice for this TOEFL speaking in a little bit, but as you're practicing, practice with a stopwatch. Make sure that you are very aware of how much time 45 seconds is and how much time 15 seconds is, because you don't want to get to the test and it's very natural. If you haven't practiced that timing, then you will feel very rushed. You will feel very unprepared because you haven't practiced that timing of, okay, 15 seconds. How much time do I have in 15 seconds? Or what can I accomplish in 15 seconds? And what can I accomplish in 45 seconds? And the more comfortable you are with that, the easier it will be. And the more relaxed you'll be in that setting. So don't be rushed. What I want you to do, instead of feeling rushed in that 45 seconds, it is better to speak slower. And this seems a little counterintuitive because you think, 45 seconds, I need to get a lot in. I need to speak faster so that I can make sure I get my full response in. But speaking slower and using fewer words and being direct, that will be more effective for you than speaking very quickly, using a bunch of words, and kind of being able to give a lot of information in that short amount of time versus just kind of simple and to the point. So what I want you to do is practice speaking slower. Again, with that organization we just talked about, use fewer words. So instead of saying the same thing a few times, but in different words, keep it simple. Think of one, you have one thought to give. My friend is a great listener because whenever I call her on the phone or whenever I have a problem, I know I can call her and we can talk through it, period. Okay. There are a lot of ways to kind of restate that same idea and to give more, kind of expound on that idea. But instead of thinking, okay, how much more can I give about this? Just think, okay, how can I get it just very direct, straight to the point, give just enough information and not too much. So speaking slower, using fewer words, and being as direct as possible. Okay, and then the final point here in passing the TOEFL speaking, sometimes it really has more to do with your accent. Okay, there's pronunciation and fluency issues that some English language learners have based on how they learned English. So if pronunciation was not a big part of your English training, or if the person, your English teacher, had a very heavy accent, thick accent, then you might have some issues with your pronunciation. And when I talk about pronunciation, or when I talk about your accent is basically the sounds and the rhythm of English. It's composed of the sounds that you're saying and the rhythm that you're using for American English. So the sounds being, there are very unique sounds to American English that you must learn, and you must learn correctly to be able to make the correct words. So think in terms of the English TH sound. This is a sound that almost every one of my students struggle with because it is very unique to English. That TH sound, there's a very specific pronunciation of it, very specific mouth placement that has to happen with that TH sound. So when you, a lot of times what happens is instead of having your tongue kind of there between your front teeth for the sound, a lot of people say it with a D sound, duh. So instead of they are coming, they are coming. They, day. So when you think of it, at first, and what happens typically is that my students, they don't hear the difference between the and duh. They don't hear the difference between those two sounds. So first you have to really understand the difference between those sounds, but understanding that if you don't use the correct sound and the correct mouth placement, it becomes a different word. So they and day are two different words. And if you're not getting the right pronunciation of those words, you're changing the whole word. And so when it comes to the TOEFL speaking section, if you have a lot of these errors in your accent or your pronunciation, then it can be very difficult for the judge to understand what you're saying, because you might be saying one word when you meet another, and it has nothing to do with understanding the vocabulary, but everything to do with your pronunciation of that word. So that's the sounds. You got to make sure that you're using the correct sounds of English. And then there's the rhythm of English. And rhythm, using the correct rhythm, comes down to kind of stress patterns and the way that you are stressing words, the intonation, pitch level, your rate of speech, all of this that kind of creates this rhythm. So one thing that I was thinking of is kind of with French speakers, the intonation or the pitch level, I win, na 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 na. There's kind of this up pitch or rising intonation that happens throughout the sentence. And what we need to do is we need to create that rhythm that's more, think of it as a hills across the valley, is that you go up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill. And there's this rhythm that English speakers are used to hearing. And that's the key of it, is that you need to start using that English rhythm that is most familiar to English speakers, because as you're taking this TOEFL speaking exam, or taking the TOEFL exam, and in the speaking section of that exam, you want to make it as easy for your listener as possible. You want to, both in your organization, right? In your organization, the way you organize your response, and you need to make sure that the words that you're saying them clearly enough and with the rhythm that will be as easy as possible for your listener to understand. And that is the key to passing the TOEFL speaking section. So one thing that I want to mention is that we've gone through these different sections of the TOEFL speaking. So there's learning English and grammar and all of that, which again, go to Jamie Miller for that, and work with her on that. We have the organization, kind of making sure that you're organized. We got the timing, making sure the timing's correct, and then reducing your accent. Out of those three, so the first two are pretty, they're relatively easy things to fix. This reducing your accent both helps in the TOEFL exam, and it is significantly important after you pass the TOEFL and you're coming to the U.S., or you're doing something that you're speaking English in a profession that you need to be understood. You need to have this clear pronunciation and fluency in your job. And out of those three things, this reducing your accent is going to take the most time and effort on your part. And that's where Pronunciation Pro comes in. So we have the TOEFL speaking package, and really what this means is we have the Plus program. I know a couple of you are, or a few of you that are here today are doing the Plus package with me. And the Plus package, what that includes is you work with me personally through recordings. So every week of the 12-week program, you send in recordings and you receive feedback. So with the TOEFL speaking package, we do it's very similar to the Plus package, but there just is a small variation here that is specific to the TOEFL exam. So one thing that I found with this TOEFL speaking package is that it is extremely effective. I'm working with a few students now that are going through the course, and as we go week by week and we're practicing together, I am just so confident that they're going to pass this the TOEFL speaking section, because their skills are just becoming more and more refined. And I've had several students that have already passed and are moving on to studying and working in the U.S. So with this TOEFL speaking package, you get to work with me personally. It starts with a full accent assessment, and then you have weekly feedback on all your 12 assignments. And what this does is, with the full accent assessment, you really are able to, I'll go through your whole, all of your speech patterns and outline for you exactly what it is that you need to work on, and what we'll be working on together through the 12-week course to help you take the way you're speaking, and how to change that in a way that will be closer to the standard American English accent, which is the most understood accent in English. So every week of the 12-week course, you get feedback for this. Feedback on your speech, your presentation, how you're developing these skills. And then you also get specific training and feedback on the TOEFL. So with each assignment, with my TOEFL students, I give them an extra little bonus thing that they have to do with their assignment, and that is to answer a TOEFL question for me. So we practice organization, we practice that timing. I have a stopwatch here, and whenever I'm listening to your response, I always keep that stopwatch close so that I know if you are staying within that time frame, time that's allotted for that response. And then, through the 12-week course, we're working on that accent, we're working on pronunciation, we're working on that rhythm, and helping you become as fluent as possible, and understood as possible. And this package, for the TOEFL speaking package, it's 3 payments of $198. So I usually get this question, okay, well then I have to take the TOEFL exam next week. What do I do? So when I get this question, we say, okay, you know what? I can't do anything about you've already scheduled and you're getting ready for this TOEFL exam, and I understand that, and I want to help you as much as possible, be able to get there as quickly as possible, because sometimes we just don't have 3 months to practice and spend working towards it. So what happens there is when you have when you have a deadline like that, then I will adjust for you. So what we'll do is we'll do that full accent assessment. I will be able to look at it and say, okay, here are the most important things for you and what will make the biggest difference for you to work on within this next month, so that you can be prepared and ready to take that exam and feel like you have the training that you need. If you have the TOEFL exam next week, I might not be able to give you as much as you need to be able to pass next week, but definitely 1 month, 2 months, and for sure 3 months, we can work with that. So with that, we will assess what is it exactly that you need to, and within that first month, we will adjust the program in such a way that we'll concentrate on those key things. But what I would encourage you to do then is, after you've kind of focused on those key things, I want you to go back, and after you've passed the TOEFL, I do want you to come back, and I want you to go through the course week by week so that you can fully develop those skills and become as refined in your pronunciation and fluency as possible, because life doesn't end after you pass the TOEFL exam. It's really just beginning. So there is a lot of life, a lot of situations that will require you to have very clear pronunciation, to get those sounds correct, that rhythm correct, so that your interactions in English are as positive as possible. So that you aren't asked, say that again, tell me, will you repeat that? You don't want to be asked that over and over again. You want to be speaking in such a way that makes it easy for your listener, and that they are not focusing on how you're saying things in English, but exactly what you're saying. So we really we're working on removing that barrier. Excuse me. All right, so passing the TOEFL, we got to look at grammar. We got to look at your organization, the timing of how you're giving those responses. And then, most importantly, in the area that I love the best, is your accent. Making sure those sounds and rhythm, are as clear and as fluent as possible. And so the idea is to keep calm, because you're prepared. You will be able to go into that TOEFL exam as calm as possible and be able to pass that without any problem. All right. So that concludes our the webinar on TOEFL. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to do some Q&A, question and answer here at the end. So if you have some questions that you'd like to do, we can go ahead and go through those. But if you have any other questions after this webinar and after we finish, you can go ahead and contact me, Annie, at pronunciationpro.com, and let me know. And if you're interested in the TOEFL exam, just shoot me an email there, or TOEFL speaking package, excuse me. Shoot me an email there, and we'll, or go onto the site on the, let's see, on the pricing page of our website. You can sign up just right there. So thank you so much for coming, and I'll stick around for a little Q&A.